We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Tesam Aleph and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 79a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was dealing with the part of the Mishnah which said that if a person rents a donkey and then it's seized by government officials, so the masker can say to the socher, Harei shel chalafanecha, take what is yours. He doesn't need to supply another donkey. And Shmuel said it really depends on which direction the government official is taking the donkey. If it's in the same direction the socher is going anyhow, so then the masker can say to the socher, Harei shel chalafanecha, I don't need to provide you with another donkey. But if the government official is taking the donkey in a different direction, so then the masker actually does have to provide the socher with another donkey. And so the Gemara asks a question from a brisa, because the brisa, in the beginning of the brisa, the Tanna Kama doesn't seem to make a distinction between whether it's going in the same direction or a different direction. It's only Rav Shimon ben Elazar who makes that distinction. And the Gemara suggested that it could be that entire brisa is really Rav Shimon ben Elazar. The Gemara now is continuing that Divrei Rav Shimon ben Elazar. This is the opinion of Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Shahai Rav Shimon ben Elazar Omer, because Rav Shimon ben Elazar says in Bederach Hiluch Nittel, if it's taken in the same direction, Omer lo Harei shel chalafanecha, so then the masker can say to the socher, take what is yours. He doesn't need to provide a different donkey. V'im lo chayiv lahamed lo chamor, but if not, he has to provide him with a different donkey. But the Gemara continues, Umimatzis mukmis lak Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Can you really say the whole brisa is following Rav Shimon ben Elazar? V'akatani reisha, but the beginning of the brisa said, Hasocher es hachamor v'ivrika, if somebody rents a donkey and it becomes ill, Osha nishtatator, if it goes crazy, Omer lo harei shel chalafanecha, so it says the masker can say to the socher, take what is yours. He does not need to provide another donkey. V'ilu Rav Shimon ben Elazar Amar, whereas Rav Shimon ben Elazar, he says in a different brisa, Hasocher es hachamor lircho v'lef, somebody rents a donkey to ride upon, v'ivrika osha nishtatator, and it becomes ill or it goes crazy, chayiv lahamid lo chamor, he does have to provide him with a different donkey. It seems to be clear that Rav Shimon ben Elazar says a different donkey does need to be provided, and the Gemara answers to that. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna says lircho v'le ashani. In that brisa, the second brisa we just quoted, it's talking about where he rents the donkey in order to ride upon it. That's already different. In that situation, if the animal is ill or goes crazy, of course you can't ride on such a donkey, so a new donkey needs to be provided. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, let's say the donkey is carrying glass vessels, that's the same as riding upon it. You need to have a donkey that is healthy. You can't have a donkey that is ill or that has gone crazy, that's going to carry klei zechuches. And Rashi explains, lirchov shani, to ride upon it is different. Shematipol tachtov begesher or shatashlichenu b'achas apechasim. Maybe she's going to fall on a bridge, or again the person's going to be thrown off. That could be problematic. That's why in that situation the socher needs to receive a different donkey. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav bar Rav Huna says that Rav says, Hasocher es hachamor lircho v'lev, somebody rents a donkey to ride on it, umeso lo b'chatzi aderech, and then the animal dies halfway through the journey, nosein lo secharo shel chatzi aderech, he has to pay him for half of the journey, he pays half the rent essentially, vein lo olav elataromis, and all he has is a complaint, there's no other monetary claim that he can make from the maskir. And the Gemara says, Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? If it's easy to find other donkeys to rent, Tarumis, Mayavidite, what's he complaining about? He'll just find a different donkey, and he'll rent a different donkey for the next half of the journey. And and if it's not common, if it's not easy to find animals to rent, so Agra Boy Lamesavle, he has to pay him rent for going halfway. He didn't actually complete what he wanted to complete. And the Gemara says, Liolam de lo shliach laguri. Really, the case is it's hard to find. You can't find animals to rent. Umisham do'amar lei, but because he says to him, meaning the masker can say to the socher, ilu bois lamesei adhacha. Let's say you wanted to come to here. Let's say your journey was only until this midpoint. Lav agra bois lamesav. Once you have to pay for that. So in this case, you're going to have to pay for what I did do for you. I got you halfway there. But the Gemara continues, Hey Chidami, well, what exactly is the case? Meaning to say, what exactly were the terms of the rental? If when he rented the donkey, he said, I'm going to provide you with a donkey in general, it wasn't a specific donkey, so in that case, he certainly needs to provide another donkey. He essentially said, I'm going to provide you with a donkey for the entire journey. If the first donkey died, he has to provide a different one. Now, if he said that I'm going to provide you with this particular donkey, and then this donkey died, so then it should also depend. Let's say there's enough in the value of the carcass of the donkey to buy another donkey, so he should be able to use that money to buy another donkey. He'll then use that donkey to finish the journey, and then of course the donkey will go back to the original owner. And so why can't that be a solution? And so the Gemara says, Lo no tzrich, it's necessary, b'she'ein b'dameh likach. There is not enough value left in the carcass of the animal to buy a new donkey. donkey. But the Gemara still says, Im yesh b'damel liskor yiskor, but if there's enough value left in the carcass to rent a donkey to finish the journey, he should do that. And the Gemara says to that, Rav Latai may know, because Rav follows his opinion. Diyama Rav lo mechalinan karna. Rav says you can't finish the principle, meaning if you're going to take the carcass to buy another donkey, so then the masker will still have that donkey, essentially the principle will not be consumed. But if you're just going to sell the carcass to rent another donkey, and then all the money is gone, all the value is gone, that you're not allowed to do. As the Gemara continues, the Itmar, it was stated the following machlokas amoraim on this issue: Hasocher es hachamuru meisalo b'chatzia derech. If somebody rents a donkey and it dies halfway through the journey, Amar Rav says, Im yesh b'damel likach yikach. If there's enough value left in the carcass to purchase another animal, that you can do. He can purchase another animal, but liskor al yiskor. But if it's just enough to rent another animal, he's not allowed to rent. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says af liskor yiskor. Even if it's just enough to rent, he is allowed to rent another animal. And the Gemara says, b'mai kamifligi, what are they arguing about? Rav savar lo mechalin an karna. Rav says you're not allowed to finish the principle. That's why renting is a problem. Ushmuel savar mechalin an karna. And Shmuel says you are allowed to consume the principle. That's why renting is not a problem. And the Gemara continues, Meisve, we have a question on Rav's view that you cannot consume the principle from the following Tosefta. The Tosefta says, Yove sha'ilan o nixas. Let's say the tree dries up or it gets cut down. This is talking about a situation where a malva, where a lender takes a tree as collateral, and the idea is he'll take the fruits from the tree, and that will be towards the paying up of the loan. But let's say the tree dries up or it gets cut, so then shneim asurin bo. So then both of them, both the malva and the lova, are prohibited to take the tree. What should you do? Ketzad yaseh, what should he do? Yilkach bo karka, he should use the tree and he should sell it in order to purchase other land. V'hu ochel peiros, and then the malva will continue to consume the peiros, the produce from that land, and eventually the land will go back to the lova. And so the Gemara says, V'hacha, but over here, kevan dechimati yovel kahadra ara lamar. If you're going to buy a new piece of land, when yovel comes, that land will be taken away from the borrower, because at the time of yovel, it goes back to the original owner. V'kakal yakarnan. So you see that the principle really is being consumed in this case. If what you're going to do essentially is take this tree and exchange it for a piece of land, which will eventually be taken away from the borrower, it's going to go to the original owner at yovel. So you see that you're allowed to consume the principle, and therefore we have a question against Rav. And the Gemara answers, Hachav Mayaskina, no, here what is the case? The Zavin Le L'Shisin Shanin. They're actually buying a piece of land for 60 years. The halach is if you buy a piece of land for 60 years, you don't buy it forever. So then it doesn't go back in Yovel, it just goes back after 60 years. And therefore it's not a situation where the principle is consumed. D'Amar Rav Chisda Amar Rav Katina, because Rav Chisda said that Rav Katina said, Minayin L'mocher Sadeh L'Shishim Shana. From where do we know that if a person sells his field for 60 years, She'ena Choseres B'Yovel, that it doesn't go back to the original owner at Yovel, Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk, "V'aretz lo simocher letzmisos." It means to say that it can't be sold forever. Misha ein sham yovel nitzmeses, yesh sham yovel ein nitzmeses. So that's talking about a situation that without yovel it would be forever, but with yovel it's not forever. Yotz dazu, that excludes this case. She'afal bi she'ein sham yovel. Even if there was no yovel ein nitzmeses, it's not going to be forever because it's only a sale for 60 years. But the Gemara asks the obvious question, sof, but still at the end, l'chimotu shisin shnin, when 60 years come, kahadra or lamar, the land is going to go back to the original owner. It will be taken away from the borrower. V'kakal yakarnin. So you see the same thing. You see that the principle is being consumed. It's still a question against Rav. And so the Gemara instead answers, Alahacha b'mayaskin, and rather here, what are we dealing with? Very simply, bisman she'ein hayovel noeg. We're talking about a situation where there is no yovel. It's a time period where there is no custom to observe the rules of yovel, and so therefore in this situation, if you're going to essentially exchange the tree for a piece of property, that property will go to the borrower and will never be taken away from the borrower because we're not following the laws of yovel in this time period. And the Gemara says, Hachanam mistabra, makes sense to say that we're talking where there's no yovel. Because if you think that we're talking when there is yovel, and you're allowed to consume the principle, so then we have a much simpler solution in this case. So just let the lender, he should just cut up the wood, and he should just use that for kindling, he could use it for firewood, and let him consume the entire principle. What do you have to do something so complicated as exchanging the tree, selling the tree for a piece of land, which is also going to get consumed? Just consume the wood. And the Gemara says to that, if that's your only difficulty, it's not a difficulty. There's a reason why we would prefer to exchange it for a piece of land rather than just consuming the wood, because zimnin deshalmushne mashkanta mekam yovel, because sometimes the years of the collateral could actually finish before the yovel, meaning to say it's true that the borrower eventually is going to lose it and it's going to be kal yakarna, but at least the borrower should could get it back at some point in time. So if you have a situation where the years of the collateral will finish before Yovel, so then he'll be able to get back his property, and then at Yovel, he's going to lose the property because it goes back to the original owner, but at least that's a better solution than just using up the wood, and the borrower is going to get back nothing. Inami or dematu lezuzu parikla arba v'chamishanin mekami Yovel. You can also have a situation where the borrower eventually gets money, and he redeems it 4 or 5 years before Yovel, and so again, this is a preferred solution to exchange the tree for a piece of property, even though it's kal yakarna, even though eventually that property will be taken away from the borrower because it's going to go to the original owner, but at least the borrower will get it back. Let's say he's able to get it back before Yovel, whereas if you just consume the wood, the borrower will get nothing back, and that's why that solution is not preferred. And Rashi explains, Yove shal ilan, if the tree dries, Misha Mishkan ilan l'chaveru, if somebody gives a tree to his friend as collateral, again it goes to the lender, Kihani mashkanta de surah, it's like the collateral of surah, the kasvi b'mishalim shnai ilain tepagara double okesef. It says when the following amount of years finishes, so then this land goes back with no money, that's as if you paid off the loan. So then it said, if the tree dried up or was cut down, shneim asurin bo, they're both forbidden to the tree, levakeya eitzim v'lisrof, they can't just consume the wood by burning it, t'isaraf le'lova kal yakarna de malva, because if the borrower burns it, so then the principal is lost for the lender. V'sarf le malva kal yakarna de lova, and if the lender is the one that burns it, then the lova loses out. So instead, you essentially exchange it for a piece of land. But then the Gemara pointed out, hadra ara de sadazu shein lochin b'dmei ha'etzim, this land that they bought with the value of the wood, it's going to go back to the original owner. V'shema yifga yovel b'soch shnei hamashkona, so maybe yovel's going to come in the middle of the years of the collateral, v'kal yakarna de lova, and now the principal of the lova will have been finished, it will be consumed. And the Gemara says, She'ena choseres b'yovel. Then the Gemara suggested, well, if it's a 60-year purchase, it won't go back in yovel. It's going to go in the 60th year. It will be returned to the original owner. And we know that's the halacha because of the pasuk, V'aretz lo simacher l'tzmisos. It says the land can't be sold forever. Kan perish lach taimo shel mitzvahs yovel. The pasuk is explaining why there's this mitzvah of yovel, that the land returns to its original owner. Alma ein ha-yovel motzi ala karka shem lo haisa mitzvahs yovel haisa nitzmeses. You see that yovel only takes away land that if not for yovel it would be a sale forever, but if it's only a 60-year sale, so yovel doesn't take away land, the land will just go back after 60 years. And so then the Gemara finally answered, here we're talking in a situation where there is no yovel, the lokal yakarna, that way the principal is not going to be consumed, it's never going to go back to the original owner, there is no yovel in this time period. And the Gemara said, well, nitzlachei letzivi, if you're going to hold that we're not concerned about consuming the principal, why are we even exchanging the tree for land? Simply burn up the wood, use up the wood. If we don't care about mechal yakarna, we don't care about consuming the principal, what do you have to buy land for? Let the lender just chop up the wood and burn it. And the Gemara says to that, that's not a good solution, because sometimes the collateral, the time period will finish. Meaning he has a certain time that he's allowed to have this tree. That will finish before Yovel. Let's say 4 or 5 years before Yovel. And in theory, the lova can then get the fruits for those years, before it goes back to the original owner. And really we do have no problem consuming the principal, but again, it's not a good solution to just destroy, to just burn up all the wood. It's better to exchange it for a piece of land for that reason. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Hasocher Sasfina, if somebody rents a boat, V'tavala b'chatzi aderech, and then it sinks halfway through the journey. Rabbi Nosson says, Im Nosan lo yitol, if the person already paid the rent, he can't take it back, he can't get a refund in this case. V'im lo nosan, but if he didn't yet give it, if he didn't yet pay the rent, so lo yitin, so he doesn't have to pay. And the Gemara says, hey, Chidami, what exactly is the case? If you say that he rented this particular boat, and he said he was going to use the boat to transport wine in general, so then so if he already paid, why can't he get a refund? Namely, he should say to him, Havli Svinta, bring me the boat that I rented, because I'm going to bring wine, I want to transport wine. And so you need to bring me the boat. If you don't bring me the boat, and he can't bring the boat because it's sunk, so then I demand a refund. So rather you're going to say, the case is that he said he's going to provide a boat in general, and the person said, I'm going to transport this particular wine. So imlo nasan, so if he didn't pay the rent, amai lo yitain, why doesn't he have to pay the rent? In that case, the person who's giving the boats can say, you bring me the particular wine, and then I'll give you the boat. Rashi explains, Im nasan es aschar v'afilo kulo, let's say the renter, he paid all of the rent. Lo yitol k'dim mefarish l'kaman, da'atoveh yado ala tachtona. We'll explain later on, he can't get a refund because the person making the claim, he has the lower hand in this situation. And Rashi continues, the Gemara said, if you say we're talking about a case where he said, I want to rent this particular boat and I'm going to transport wine in general, so im nasan lo yitol, so if he paid, he doesn't get a refund. Bitmiya, the Gemara is asking this as a question. Of course he should get a refund. V'alo tainas hatoveh bari v'chazaka mitainas hanitva. In this case, the person making a claim has the stronger claim. Diamarle, because he can say to him, Havli ahi svinta gufa, give me that boat. Do'amrit li svinazu, you said you're going to give me this particular boat. V'ana ma'isina kan chamer, and I'm going to bring wine. I just have to bring wine in general. V'yolech l'makom shesneis, and then I'm going to take it to the place that we originally agreed upon. Do'hano yayin stam amri, because I said I was just going to bring wine in general. V'kevan debal hayayin yochol lahashlam, to know, since the person with the wine, he's able to fulfill his side of the bargain. He's able to bring the wine. Chayev hasafon lahamid lo sfina. So the person who's supposed to provide the ship should be obligated to provide a ship. Otherwise, there should be a refund. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Tes Amid Beis.